Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, Leanna's Nest. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made my Christmas village for this year, 2022. What you see here is a platform that I kind of just threw together, and it's going to be my top tier of my Christmas village. I went to Menards and I picked up a package of styrofoam. This was actually the most economical that I found, and I'm going to be using this as a base as well as to raise up levels of my Christmas village. One of the things I really wanted to do this year is to build a mountain with a sledding / ski hill. So I'm going to be doing that using some styrofoam blocks that I had left over from last year. And I'm just building up the different levels of the mountain. I'm also going to be adding some packaging that I had, some cardboard, corrugated cardboard, and I'm using that as the base underneath my sledding hill. And this piece of cardboard will be my sledding hill. This cardboard free, came in packaging, so it's a great way to make your village more economical. I also reused styrofoam that I used last year just to prop up things for spray painting. I used these cardboard drink holders that I gotten from a fast food restaurant to help me build my hills for my mountain. Next, I ripped off chunks out of my styrofoam to make it not look so square and more realistic. I'm actually going to be adding half of a drink holder to the side of the mountain to make it look more realistic, and I'm going to be using this plaster cloth to cover everything so you don't see the styrofoam. This I got from Hobby Lobby. It's used for this, it's designed for these type of things. So I'll be using this to cover my mountain and hills. You can see here that I just glued on the drink carrier on the side of the mountain, and I cut my plaster cloth into strips to make application easier. And I just used a bowl of water, I followed the directions on the package and started covering up the styrofoam with the plaster cloth. It's like super easy. You just put it on, smooth it out, and here you can see the progression of how I just got everything covered. I'm going to cover around the cardboard, but not over the main portion of the cardboard, because I'm actually going to use putty, what's it called? Spackling. I'm just going to use spackling over that part to represent the snow for the sledding / ski hill. And here it is with majority of this side of the mountain covered with the plaster cloth. So if you watched my Christmas village build last year, I made a pond, and this is just using glue, cardboard, paint, and some rocks that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. It was pretty simple, so if you want to know how I made it, watch my video, which I will have linked above and below. I'm going to take another drink carrier and I'm just going to cut out a section of it. I'll use the same technique that I did for the mountains and cover it with the plaster cloth, and I will be painting it just like I will be painting the mountains. One of the things that I'm doing differently this year is adding onto this pond, and I'm going to build a waterfall below that goes to a little stream in another pond. And this is the hills covered with the plaster cloth. And you can see that my mountain is all covered with the plaster cloth and just needs to dry completely so I can paint it. So to try to get the most realistic looking mountains possible, I'm going to be painting the mountains and the hills in different stages, starting with the darkest color first, which is a mixture of gray and black, a pavement gray, pewter gray, and a black chalk paint. They're all matte colors, and that will be my base coat for the mountain, and then I will do lighter coats on top. This technique is not my own. I actually learned it from another YouTuber who does awesome Christmas villages. So I have to give a shout out to her. Her name is Miriam's Manor. So if you wish, you could check her out. So as I mentioned, I'm just covering everything with my base coat, my darkest coat, and then I will let that dry completely before I put on my next coat. And this is the finished base coat for the sides of the mountain. I'm gonna touch up a couple spots where you can still see white through there, but otherwise it's finished. So you will see on the corners, I kind of ripped off the corners because I'm trying not to have any edges that are too square, that look unnatural. Back to my pond and the hills around my pond, I'm going to do the same technique to those, and I'm going to paint them with a dark base color, let that dry, and then paint the other layers on top. Now that my paint, my base coat is dry, I'm going to move on to the sledding hill, and I'm going to use a spackling that I got from the Dollar Tree along with this white gloss paint. I just used all paints that I had. I think I only bought a couple new paints this year, but I used all paints that I had. I'm going to be mixing the white paint with a spackling because the spackling actually has a little bit of a grayish color to it. So I'm going to make it a little brighter, and I'm going to make it, it helps, mixing the paint helps like the spackling stick together better and not crumble. So I used a putty knife and I just applied the spackling with the paint to the sledding hill. I didn't try to make it perfect or anything like that because snow usually isn't perfect. I also applied the spackling and paint mixture around the edges at the base of my mountain so it covers up the edges of the styrofoam and just makes it look more natural. The styrofoam that you see underneath that as a base of my top tier of my Christmas village is going to be covered with a different type of snow, but this little platform that the mountain's sitting on, I am covering all of that with the spackling paint mixture to make it look like snow and just kind of make it adhere more to the styrofoam below. You can see here I had a gap where there's the cardboard, and I had run out of the plaster cloth, so I just covered that with some extra spackling too, so they didn't have any gaps. Now that the paint for my hills, or at least the base coat for my hills, has dried, I'm going to go ahead and attach my pond to the styrofoam piece that the hills is sitting on. So I use a little school glue underneath to attach that cardboard that the pond is sitting on to the hills, so I didn't have it moving around and shifting as I'm adding to the scenery for the Christmas village. After that, I'm going to go ahead, like I said, I'm going to make a waterfall. If you saw my video from last year, see how I attached the rocks all around the pond, a few of the rocks fell off, so I decided I was going to use that spot to build my waterfall and my stream that's going to attach to my layer below. First, I traced it out, and then this styrofoam is really, it's not a hard styrofoam, so I was able to just use an X-Acto knife and just pull out the pieces of the foam easily. Next, I line my river with foil. I apply school glue over the base and the sides of my river. I'm laying down foil, making sure that it's laid, covering the base and the sides. At the end, I am placing a piece of styrofoam back there to create a little wall because I will be filling this with a substance called realistic water. And so when it dries, it looks all like real water. It's going to be different than what I used for the pond that I made last year, but I don't want anything to leak. So
And then just an effort to make it look more realistic, I am covering the foil with spackling and paint mixture and letting that dry completely before going to the next step. While that is drying, you can see that there's a gap from my pond to the styrofoam. So I am actually going to be using spackling, and I just used my finger to apply spackling all around the edge of the pond so that there is no gap there and it looks more natural. All the way around the pond, I applied the putty to any area where there was gaps, just to make it look more realistic. Now that the base coat of my mountain is dry, I'm going to start applying the next layer, which I'm going to use primarily just this country gray. I did mix a little bit of white into it and just going to do a coat over it to make it look, the point of all this is to make it look more like rock. So the darker spots, you can really see that there's different levels and depths to the rock with the darker paint and the lighter paint over top of that. Now, while my mountain is drying, I added some spackling to the top of my pond because I think of this as kind of like a spring, a mountain spring. It goes into a pond, that goes into a waterfall and a river. Over the river, I'm going to have this bridge. Now, this will be on my second layer, but I'm going ahead because this is going to be a multi-day project. I'm going ahead and starting this project even though it goes on my middle tier. So I measured out how wide I wanted the river. I made sure that the river would connect with the river above through the waterfall and everything would align properly. So next I'm just going to cut out using my X-Acto knife the shape of the pond and the river for my middle tier. Now that my middle coat of my mountain is dry, I'm going to jump back to my mountain and I'm going to apply the top and final coat, which is my white snowy coat. I'm going to be using white gloss paint. Like I said, I use the supplies that I have available first before going out and buying new paint. My white chalk paint that I had, I thought it was good, but it wasn't good, so I ended up using my white gloss paint that I had, and I just brushed the paint over the mountains. I didn't want any like large globs. I wanted to try to look natural, like snow had just landed on the mountain and gathered in certain spots, like especially any spot that was flat. In nature, there would be more snow there, so I just applied more snow there and less on the sides. For the next part of the top tier of the Christmas Village, I'm going to go ahead and lay out my larger buildings. I don't have that many of them. I just have a barn. For a farm, I have my little lodge, and then I have my Christmas tree farm. And so I laid them out because I'm going to be sprinkling like the loose buffalo snow. So I want to glue around the buildings. And you can see I have them outlined here, the lines. That's where I'm going to be placing the glue. And then I'm going to be adding like the buffalo snow flurries. That's what they're called. And so I'm going to be adding those. It's going to be sticking to the styrofoam and just a more realistic snow than the snow blanket I used last year. So I don't need to put it underneath where the buildings are. So that's why I'm outlining where my buildings will sit. Now my riverbed is dry now. So I'm going to paint the inside of it blue. And I'm going to let that dry before I apply Mod Podge over it, and then later on my realistic water after everything is dry. Now as that is drying, I'm going back to my river and pond that I'm doing on my middle level, And I'm just lining that with glue, and then I'm going to cover that with foil, just like I did my river above, so that there's no leakage of the realistic water when I pour it in there. And just like before, I'm going to spread plaster and paint mixture through the lake and river, so the riverbed and lake is more realistic looking. I also use it to cover the foil edges that I've glued down on the outside, and I just have to wait for this to dry now. Now that I have gotten my snow placed down, I put the buildings back, and now I can fill in and accessorize the different areas with people and other figurines. Around the lodge, I just placed a fence and a well and a girl feeding deer. And around the farm, I just have a few farm-related figurines, like the farm animals and a guy feeding horses and a boy reading with his horse. I'm also just placing a little road next to the mountain for mountain access. Then on the mountain, I have placed some people rolling a snowball, and then I will place some sledding figurines. This is a cute little sign that says sled parking only. On top of the mountain, I'm placing this cute little red house that I got from Target. It does light up. And then on the hill, I just put my sledding figures that I have. I have another figurine of people pulling a sled to go sled on the hill. By the way, since my paint is dry, I'm just covering it with Mod Podge so I can let that dry too before adding my water. For the final touches of my sledding hill mountain, I am just adding a couple pine trees that I got in a set. I don't know which one is from which set anymore. They kind of blurred together. Well, some of them look a little bit different, but I bought those off of Amazon over the last several years. On the other side of my top tier, where my Christmas tree farm is and my little pond and waterfall, I'm just adding some rocks around the edges of the river and for a kind of starting point for the waterfall. I also added a little parking lot in front of my Christmas tree farm by adding a couple of my brick roadway strips. And I just added a couple rocks in different areas because I had a little gap. If you saw my Christmas village last year, I made a little Christmas tree forest that I put next to my Christmas tree farm. I don't really have that much room here next to the actual Christmas tree farm sign. Or not Christmas tree farm, but Christmas trees for sale. So I wanted to have a little farm next to it. So I had these strips to create a forest from last year, and I'm just adding them on both sides of the lodge. I also added this guy fishing with his dog to the pond. I thought that was a cute addition. And this is what the top tier of my Christmas village looks like so far. It's really coming together, and I'm really happy with how it has been turning out. So it's time to add my realistic water to my river. I will be doing this the same thing below for my river and pond below. One of the important tips is that you can only do like an 1/8 inch at a time and let that dry before you add more depth, or it won't dry properly. So it is now time to start on my middle tier, and I'm using foam insulation that I got from Menards to build up the base. But it is time to add the paint to the lake and river. I let my kids handle that. They completely, my son painted the base coat, and then my daughter came in and painted the top coat of the pond, and they were really excited to be able to help with that project.
As you can see here on top of the insulation, the purplish pink insulation that I use my regular foam insulation that I also got from Menards, and I'm kind of staggering it so there's almost little tiny stair steps. And then I just painted it gray because I wanted to look like a stone or rock. And here my daughter is actually painting it gray. My kids were so excited to be able to help with different parts of the Christmas village because I've been excited about Christmas villages for years, and now they've really gotten excited about Christmas villages too. And you can see here that after I did, my daughter did the base coat, then we came back and did a lighter gray color to make it look more stone-like, and then going over that with a little bit of white to make it look like it's snow on there. Behind my middle level, I just added a panel to the back so you couldn't see underneath the ledge, and then I painted this panel gray, and then I'm going to go over it with some white to just make it not look like a flat gray color and kind of look snowy. I didn't put a lot of effort into this part, but I didn't think that it really was going to matter. I'm okay with how it turned out, but I'm sure if you had time, one of the things that I should have done differently is I should have painted it before I attached it. And I attached it up to the top layer using a combination of glue and toothpicks to help it stay hooked on there. So my middle layer of my Christmas village, or my middle tier, is primarily park. And I thought about just covering it with all snow, but I wanted it to be visibly look kind of like a park. So I decided I wanted to have some green grass showing, and I just had to decide which way I wanted to create green grass. And there are a lot of different options, but the most economical option I found was it was like a roll of grass paper that came from Hobby Lobby. Now, just a note, it rips kind of easily, but what I just did is, and there wasn't a lot of it, the roll was wide but not that long, so I just cut out sections that I did not need, like underneath my pond, underneath other areas. I just cut it out, and then I glued it all to the styrofoam. Now, it doesn't really, you can see it kind of buckles, and it does not stay down. So that's why you see all these food bottles sitting on top of the grass, just to sit there until it dried. In the areas that I just ran out of grass, our connecting areas, I painted with green paint. I mixed two green paint shades together to get a very close green to what the green grass was. And because they have things setting in front of them, it really, when it's finished, it's not going to be very noticeable that there's a difference between the actual green grass roll and the paint that I'm doing. I also use the same paint to paint around the pond on the styrofoam and over the foil. So this is what it looks like once it's dry and I removed all the condiments and bottles and everything like that. So you can see it definitely doesn't lay flat, but once it's finished, the buckling really isn't noticeable. And I just need to figure out the placement of everything. So my largest and most important items I place out along the middle tier. My carousel, my rides, my ice skating rink, the pond, of course. And then I'm just going to start filling in with all the other park things, because basically what I'm having at the park is a little winter Christmas carnival. So I want to have everything placed, making sure that I have enough space for everything before I add any snow or any final accessories. My pond is finally ready to add the first layer of realistic water. So I pour that in at about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to let that dry until it's hard. On the bottom or first tier of my Christmas village, I'm going to cover this purple foam with my
cobblestone paper that I put together last year. And if you want to see how I did this, you can watch my video from last year. And so I'm just adding this to the first level because this will be like my downtown square level. And so I am just having my Christmas tree as a center and focal point of my downtown area. And then I'm going to be filling in with all my buildings. All of these buildings I got from Walmart, their Christmas Village line. And I really like them. I think they're a great price and I like the look of them. So these are my downtown village buildings that I'm going to put in there before I put in all the people. This stone wall set came from my goals, and I'm going to be adding part of it up on the middle tier around the house and the other sections around the church, just to give it a more formal look. And here you can see I have lots of people that I'm going to be placing in my downtown area, shoppers and all that. And this is what it's looking like so far. It's really coming together and I'm getting really excited about it. I also added all my people to my park level. I have people drinking hot cocoa and grandpa and granddaughter reading by the pond, and I have the popcorn maker and the people with the cookie contest. I'm going to be filling in on both the middle and the bottom layer all of my extra Christmas trees that I have, because as I mentioned, I have 2 sets of Christmas trees that I collected over 2 years. I'm also going to be making a little village level, well, not village level, but houses, because I don't have very many houses in my village. So I'm going to be putting together a little platform that's like a neighborhood. I'm going to be using some of my brick pathway, and I'm going to be elevating it up right behind the park. I have this fence I also got that I'm going to be adding to the little neighborhood that I'm building. I'm going to be elevating the neighborhood using this strip of foam and some foam blocks that I had left over from last year. And so I'm just going to have those as risers, and it's going to fit right behind my park, and I will be painting it later. Now, this is my waterfall that I painted blue to connect the upper pond to the lower river and pond. I just painted it blue, and then I'm going to be using something called water effects to create the actual waterfall. So I just squeezed it out in strips for the length of the waterfall, and then I went back and I put in more strips, and I had some cross connecting strips, and I put this on wax paper. Not recommended. It really did stick when I tried to pull it up. I also applied water effects between the 2 layers. Actually, I think I have 3 layers of this pond and river, or 3 or 4. So you can see I applied a waterfall there, and I'm going to just apply from the spring. I'm just going to apply a little water effects back up there. Now, this will dry clear or semi-transparent.
I added my second layer of water effects to the lake and the river. To my neighborhood platform, I'm just gluing down a little roadway, and then I'm placing extra glue on there so that I can add my buffalo snowflakes for the snow effect. And then I'm just placing the houses. These houses I've had for years. I got them from Target. I haven't seen any, I don't think I saw any this year like this. I think they changed them up a little bit, but those are my houses for my neighborhood. And this is, almost finished, almost finished. One of the last touches that I'm going to place is adding the snow to the park level and to the town square downtown area. So I'm just sprinkling the snow over the grass so you can still see that there's green grass underneath. And I do the same to the downtown town square area. I just like sprinkle the buffalo snowflakes around different areas, especially in front of like buildings or wherever I put figurines, just to make it look like it's snowy. And behind the buildings, there was like a little ledge where you could see the purple foam. And I actually just stuffed some of my batting that I had from last year underneath it so that you couldn't see that foam. You could paint it if you had that same issue, but I decided it was just easiest for me to put the foam underneath, or the batting underneath. My Christmas tree, where right now I don't even remember where I got that Christmas tree from, but I did add like a strand of multicolored mini lights. I don't know if they're actually called fairy lights, but they're mini lights. I add that strand and it's on a timer, so it's really nice because I don't have to worry about turning it on or off. It just goes on automatically every day. I used to say this or that was my favorite part of my Christmas village, but now I have so many favorite elements, I don't even know which one is my favorite. I just love it all. It just came together so nicely. It was a labor of love, and I am not sorry about the amount of time and effort that I put into it because it's just something that is special to me. And I've always wanted a Christmas village like when I was a little girl. That was like one of my dreams. And each year I've added on to it. I've gotten more things. And it's just like, it's kind of, you can use this as an example as, you know, if you want a Christmas village and you don't have money to go out and buy like a bunch of elements, just start small and each year add a thing or two and do more DIY projects, and you'll have something amazing and something that's special to you. And if you have kids, it's a memory that they will grow up with, and that's awesome. One of the things I kind of forgot to mention was that I did cut up the brick roadway that I had gotten into strips, smaller strips, so that I could do pathways throughout the park. By the way, this ice skating rink came from Menards. This is the first year that I bought any of the Menards collection Christmas Village figures. Most of the actual people are Leanna people, most of them. A few of them aren't. Most of the buildings are from Walmart. The train ride is a Leanna Christmas Village thing. The few items that I got this year, Leanna items, I got from Michael's, and they were all 50% off, so it was a great deal. I am really pleased with the water effects. Last year I used just a blue colored glue. That works. Honestly, that works. But I just love the extra natural look of the water effects. Now this are the realistic water, sorry. The water effects, this one, I don't know if I would do it exactly the same next year, but I think that people get the gist of what is supposed to be happening with that waterfall.
Doesn't matter if the snow is falling or the wind blows and the rain is pouring. It will always be Christmas in my heart. But this year I wanna hang out with my friends and family, making angels in the sand, you and me. Doesn't matter, it is Christmas in my heart. can promise Santa's coming to visit. No, he wouldn't miss this in Christmas times. Oh, and the sunset is just getting better on a blanket with the skyline painted in blue. Ooh, and that's what we do. Doesn't matter if the snow is falling or the wind blows and the rain is pouring. It will always be Christmas in my heart. But this year I wanna hang out with my friends and family, making angels in the sand you let me. Doesn't matter, it is Christmas in my heart.
I made sure that I added snow around the pond to tie it in with the rest of the park and to make it look like more like a winter scene instead of a summer scene. The funny thing about that popcorn maker, I had that last year and I didn't even realize it turned on. It's actually really cool and it's a favorite of my kids. But it's so funny, I went through a whole season and I didn't even know it turned on. I love getting comments and I try to respond to comments to my videos, but just let me know, what do you think is your favorite part of the Christmas Village this year, and what was improved from last year? If you watched last year's video, I would just love to hear from you guys. And of course, I have to share what it looks like at nighttime with all the lights turned off. You can see that it produces quite a bit of light and charm. And I just love sitting there, listening to Christmas music, and just looking at my Christmas village. It makes us all really happy.